I want to speak carefully today, not emotionally, not reactively, but truthfully. I supported President Trump. I believed him when he said he would be a president of strength and restraint. I believed that strength would deter escalation. I believed that America would avoid unnecessary war. And now we found ourselves in the first weeks of a conflict that has already produced something devastating. On February the 28th, a primary school in Minab, Iran, was struck during U.S. and Israeli operations. Multiple independent investigations, including reporting from the New York Times, BBC, NPR, Reuters, CNN, and others, indicate that the strike was likely carried out by the United States. Video analysis identified what experts believe was a U.S. Tomahawk cruise missile. A preliminary Pentagon inquiry, reported on March the 11th, found that the United States was likely responsible, though the final investigation is still ongoing. From that strike, the reported death toll stands between 175 and 180 people. Most of them were school children, girls between the ages of 7 and 12. Let that settle for a moment. Not statistics, children. Now, I want to be clear. The United States has stated it does not deliberately target civilian institutions. Investigations suggest this may have been an intelligence failure, possibly outdated coordinates that misidentified the building. The school was located near a former military compound, but multiple investigations found no evidence that it was being used for military purposes at the time of the strike. Intent matters, but so do outcomes. And the outcome is this: a school collapsed, families buried daughters, and the world watched. As a Christian and as a Roman Catholic, I cannot simply scroll past that. The Catholic Church does not forbid all war, but it does set conditions. Official Catholic teaching lays out what is known as just war doctrine. For military force to be morally legitimate, several criteria must be met: just cause, legitimate authority, last resort, probability of success, proportionality, and serious efforts to avoid civilian harm. International humanitarian law also requires a clear distinction between soldiers and civilians. Schools are protected. Children are especially protected. If this strike resulted from faulty intelligence, that raises serious moral questions. If proper verification was not exercised, that raises serious moral questions. If artificial intelligence systems were involved in target selection without adequate human oversight, as some reporting indicated, that raises even deeper questions. Not partisan questions, moral ones. Here is what unsettles me most. If another nation struck an American elementary school, if 175 of our children were buried beneath rubble, we would not call it collateral damage and move on. We would demand accountability. We would expect outrage. So the Christian question is not, which side are you on? The Christian question is, does the image of God stop at our borders? Because every child buried in Minab was made in the image of God. Every single one. Genesis tells us that humanity bears God's image. And in Matthew 25, Christ tells us that what we do to the least amongst us, we do to him. That does not disappear in wartime. Now, I also want to address something else I've been hearing. There are voices declaring this war prophetic, declaring this escalation a sign, declaring this part of an inevitable end-time script. As a Roman Catholic, this is not how I was formed. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 24, verse 36, "Of that day and hour no one knows." In Acts chapter 1, verse 7, "It is not for you to know times or seasons that the Father has fixed by his own authority." Official church teaching cautious against turning political events into prophecy charts or treating leaders like instruments of divine destiny. The church teaches that there will be a final trial. It does not teach that we decode headlines like a calendar. War is not automatically God's will simply because it happens. And political leaders are not prophetic figures simply because they hold office. We are commanded to pray for leaders. We are not commanded to sanctify every decision. Now let me say something personal. Supporting a president does not mean surrendering conscience. In fact, faith requires the opposite. I still believe in national sovereignty. I still believe in strong borders. I still believe America has a right to defend itself. But I also believe that when a school collapses and children die, we do not rush to minimize it. We investigate. We account. We repent where necessary. We learn. Because moral seriousness is what divides civilization from brutality. President Trump initially suggested the strike may have been carried out by Iran. Subsequent investigations, including open-source missile analysis, contradict that claim. The administration says a full investigation is underway. Good. It must be thorough. It must be transparent. And if mistakes were made, they must be acknowledged. Not because America is evil, but because America is accountable. Strength without accountability becomes something else. This is not betrayal. It is maturity. It is not disloyal to ask whether just war principles were upheld. It is not disloyal to grieve foreign children. It is not disloyal to insist that civilian protection matters. In fact, that insistence is what preserves moral authority. War is tragic. Mistakes happen. But when those mistakes bury children, Christian cannot become numb. We must pray for peace. Pray for leaders. Pray for truth. Pray for restraint. And we must guard against the temptation to turn geopolitics into theology. Christ will return, but not because we scheduled it, not because we escalated it, not because we baptized conflict as destiny. He returns on His timing. Our task is faithfulness. Stand firm in your faith and protect your freedom. Now, go ahead and subscribe. You already know you're coming back. This is the Emma Effect. See you soon.